I'm gonna just push it
All right,
twice.
we're about to go live. I'm going to mute everyone so that nothing strange is said unintendingly.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How you guys doing?
I love the purple walls. That's awesome.
Alhamdulillah.
Or the accent.
Accent. It's
Laker
a dual tone, man. Dual tone. Alhamdulillah. So that burger idea did not work.
Yeah.
It was too hot, man. It's still too hot, man. Alhamdulillah. I'm just gonna turn my camera off when you guys start talking, and I'll turn my sound off too, and I'll just finish eating my burger. It's probably what you're doing, right? You're going on a break for dinner, right?
Ooh.
Farhan, man. Farhan's like, yeah, I got a dip at 8:45. I'll be right back after that. It's gonna go eat and then come right back.
I was
That's
supposed
not
to,
chicken.
I was supposed to do a talk at 8:45, but I'm gonna skip it and just tell everyone to watch this instead.
Okay, mashallah. It's the IOK talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just you already branded this IOK as well. You guys are good, man. You guys are like the masters of branding, man.
Just missing the logo. I told you.
Yeah, the other branding, man. I'm talking about like the one that on the cattle, you know, like the hadith. Plus some cursed people for branding.
Brand on the face.
Brand on the face.
Face tattoos.
Exactly. You do one IOK program, you're branded on the face. Are you at home or you IOK?
I'm at home.
Oh, you got a nice library, man. Mashallah. I forgot that, man.
You know, I've seen these posts where people are.
Where Sheikh Sahel come from?
That's what I wondered.
He came.
It's not even on.
He hacked in.
Yeah. Probably one of your houses, man, like hiding in the corner.
Oh, well, Sister Lubna's there. Okay.
Okay, mashallah.
There we go.
Time to start being serious now.
So I think we're just missing Sheikh Nauman.
Can you turn that off, my love? Just please. Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Can you see us both? Do you guys see me and so?
No.
No.
We see your
Your,
first name.
your camera's off, probably.
Okay. Here it comes. We're going live.
Now we see you. Assalamu alaikum.
MashaAllah. Oh,
So
shit.
he'll disappear.
Where were you? Are you guys in the North Pole or something?
Oh no!
Mashallah, that.
Are we gonna play with that virtual
Get my daughter
backgrounds?
to fix that.
I should probably put.
I think if all of us put filters on our cameras, that would be really great. Like with hats or
I'm
funny
for it.
sunglasses or something.
I'm for it.
Put the
Oh
camera.
my God. I'm gonna go get her.
Sheikh Nauman, Allahu Akbar.
Allah.
Allah. MashaAllah.
Alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa
Damn,
rahmatullah.
Sheikh Hassan.
Alaikum assalam.
You're like blending into the background.
I know, man. That's boastful effects, man.
This is so great. Humor is exactly what's needed. I say keep the background. That's so fun.
Alhamdulillah. There we go.
You should have been on 10 minutes ago. These guys just started behaving recently when everyone else joined.
I'm live from Saudi Arabia.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam. wa rahmatullah.
How do you change your background? I'm still learning this Zoom thing.
Go to stop
You could
video,
go to, yeah,
and then you press that little up button, and then it says choose virtual background.
yeah,
You can actually download any picture you have in your.
Oh.
yeah. Just your screen color has to match. You have to have color contrast with the clothes you're wearing in order for it to work properly.
I'm representing the Mufti of Egypt.
Well, check that out, bro. How do you do that?
Virtual khutbah, يعني يجوز
يعني كل شيء جاهز.
يجوز.
Okay.
See if this works. Oh yeah, look at that. That's fun.
Oh,
Where is this? How do you do it?
Go to virtual background.
Go to stop video on the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, unmuting.
Guys, I'm really tired, so I'm not going to be talking too much, but I'll just be listening and I'll just wave to them.
Alhamdulillah.
By the way, if you guys don't know, we're already live.
Oh, that's good to know. Mashallah.
Yeah, I said.
Kind of somewhat important, you know.
We're starting off, or
All right. Everyone's here, correct? Yes. All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Salatu wassalam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy, Saturday nights. Inshallah, this is hopefully a first of many during this time where we can get ourselves together and have discussions and allow people to chat with us and ask questions and whatnot. The goal here, inshallah, is to show solidarity and unity between the SoCal Muslim community, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq. So to start off, I'll ask a question, and then maybe we'll let that conversation kind of take its own course. I do have several questions, and I don't intend to get through them all, but we'll see what happens. In the meantime, anyone who is watching and would like to throw a comment, a question, you can have it specific to someone of the group or in general, inshallah, and we'll do our best to try and answer everyone's questions and concerns. As the flyer said, it's really, we're gonna reflect, share thoughts, experiences about this situation right now. And to start us off, let me just pull up the list of questions. Start us off, I wanna ask each and every one of us, what is one thing you learned about yourself in the last 2 weeks that maybe surprised you? So Sheikh Mustafa, mashallah, you're on the screen right now, so let's go ahead and start with you.
Mashallah. All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. So yeah, I mean, what really surprised me is how the situation has been developing. I think we live in a modern era where oftentimes we have this assumption that we're so advanced in technology. We understand most of what there is to understand about the world. Anytime there's going to be some new phenomenon, some new medical issue or something that comes up, we have a really good understanding of it. And what ends up happening these last few weeks is the guidance just kept on changing, right? So our understanding of what this COVID-19 was, our understanding of what precautions we're supposed to be taking, our understanding of what is the real risk level started changing all over the place. And there just seemed like there was a lot of confusion among the people who are really entrusted with political decisions, medical decisions, even Islamic fiqh decisions and things like that. So that was surprising, in a way. It was kind of a reminder that we humans we're very fallible, and sometimes we overestimate our own knowledge and our own understanding. So that was one big thing for me, and the second thing was also, it was a positive, is that we learned how to adapt. So like 2 weeks ago, no one thought we would have been where we are now. 1 week ago, no one thought we would have been where we are now. We kind of just we kept adapting to the situation. So people had very strong opinions in the beginning. This is exactly what's going to happen. I know this is the way to tackle it. This is the way we should, close the masjid or open the masjid or do this or do that. And then you have to realize we had to make those adjustments. So a lot of that was kind of surprising. Not surprising in the greater scheme of things, because that's the way life is, but surprising in the sense that just kind of life is very unpredictable and society is unpredictable and we never know what's going to happen. So that was a kind of a good reminder for me and for everyone else.
Anyone would like to go next?
Why don't you just appoint them? Just call them. It's going to be easier.
Sister Sundus, can you please go ahead?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and for having me. Something I learned about myself that surprised me probably would be how tired I was and how much I kept pushing myself to just keep going despite the fatigue. And alhamdulillah, now what are we, like 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, last track of the days. I have never felt so rested, and my body has never felt so rested, such that clutter from my mind has been able to get a little bit organized. And what surprises me is that I'm noticing things around me and I'm more in the present. So for example, today I finally went outside in the backyard. And do you know how long it's been since I've sat in our backyard, our tiny little backyard? I mean, it's embarrassing. It's like a year and a half or 2 years because we just don't have time. And I took a book and I sat outside in the sunshine to get some vitamin D, which is really important. And even then, I was sitting there for an hour and absorbed in my book, not really noticing my surroundings. When my daughter comes outside and sits in front of me in the chair, and then she says, "Mama, look at that tree." And I turn my head, and just right next to me, amongst the brown and the green, is this beautiful tree. I think it's like cherry blossom. I didn't even know we had it in our backyard. And we've been living in this house for 10 years, subhanAllah. And I was just completely mesmerized by the beauty of the colors. I didn't say anything for maybe 30 seconds, just completely shocked that this was right next to me. And even when I was outside and even in the quarantine, I was so absorbed in my book that I didn't notice it. And that keeps shocking me. You know, when we go out on a little family walk or something, just noticing the sky, noticing the clouds, literally stopping to smell the roses or stopping to smell a flower because we have that time, just appreciating the beauty around me. I think that was really, resonated with me. It took me back. So yeah, taking my time, alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much. So before we continue, I should introduce each and every one of you. Sheikh Mustafa Umar is the Imam at the Islamic Institute of Orange County in Anaheim, California. He also is the president of the California Islamic University as well. Sister Sundus is a chaplain at the Hoag, I don't know how to say it, hospital in Irvine. And you know, I'm sure that's quite an experience for you, which I hope we'll have time to for you to share, since you're kind of ground zero. Next, if Sister Lubna and Sheikh Mullah can please say a few words, both of which, I don't know, both are with Khalil Center. And if you give a little bit of background about you, that would be great.
My wife loves talking, so she'll start, you know.
Well, on that point, assalamu alaikum, everybody. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. Alhamdulillah, I'm a Khalil Center supporter. Alhamdulillah, I support Khalil Center right here. And I'm happy to be an IOK chaplain at UCLA. So with that, what surprised me is my happiness at home. I'm happy to be home in general, alhamdulillah, but I am very much a people person. I enjoy my interactions, even as mundane as they may be, either at the coffee shop or in the grocery store. And now I have to limit that a lot. So I'm surprised, alhamdulillah, I'm totally at peace at home. Like Sister Sunda said, I'm actually more rested. Everybody I'm noticing in the home is less stressed, which is really funny because we have all these limitations, yet really, in a sense, that's actual freedom to kind of figure stuff out at home. And it's funny for me, it seems like the more restrictions we have, the more you just kind of have to figure stuff out in a different way. And in a sense, that simplifies things greatly. So that surprised me about myself, how content I am despite the lack of physical social interaction outside my family, alhamdulillah.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Salatu wassalam ala Rasulillah. I'm your brother Suhail Mullah, and I'm the director at the Los Angeles branch of the Khalil Center, as well as the resident scholar at the Islamic Society of West Valley and a chaplain through IOK at UCLA and Cal State Northridge. SubhanAllah, I'm personally I'm enjoying the time. I'm an introverted sort of person, and I enjoy my time at home, and I enjoy my time in my garden, and I'm getting more of that. And today I went to a plant nursery where this guy, he sells exotic fruits, and I spent like 3 hours just sitting and talking to him. And so about plants and how to grow them, and how the particulars, and it was a tremendously fulfilling experience for me. So I'm in my comfort zone, really. But one thing I do want to share is one thing I did learn, and one thing I really appreciated about this experience. Over the course of the years, I haven't participated too much in terms of as it relates to the Shura Council, the Islamic Shura Council of Southern California. And when the when COVID-19 and its spread started getting very serious, I realized that I didn't have the unilateral ability to make big decisions for my community that I serve at our masjid, our local masjid, and I really needed the guidance and that collaborative input from my respected elders and my colleagues, my imam colleagues, to really kind of help navigate what I wanted to do locally. And I didn't want to make big decisions unilaterally. And so I really appreciated that experience, a few phone calls and everybody bouncing ideas off one another. And I thought that was I thought there was a tremendous amount of barakah in that. And so that's one thing I learned about myself, that I really appreciate having people of sound knowledge around me that I can lean on when I need them.
Jazakumullah khair. So Hassan Ilyas sends you, the Mullah family, his shout out. So just to relay that. Next we'll go to Sheikh Atif Mahgoub. I'll make sure I say that right. Sheikh Atif is the Imam of the ICOI, the Islamic Center of Irvine. And we're glad to have you with us. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Atif. Please share a few words.
Jazakumullah khair. So, it's such an honor to be with all of you tonight. Well, I think everything that happens around us, should remind us with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When something like that happens, like, the coronavirus or any natural disaster or any of these things, it should remind us with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should just pause and reflect. They said when a dark cloud would appear, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have a concerned look on his face, and he would pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he would say, Inna rabbakum yasta'tibukum, and he will pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah keep us safe, Ya Allah keep us safe. And he will turn to people and he will remind them that they should return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One thing that I learned from this, and not just me, the whole community really, is that we take everything for granted. We take everybody for granted. We're blessed to live in this beautiful, sunny Southern California. We're surrounded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's signs.
Amen to that.
We're so spoiled, we're so spoiled by the beautiful weather, the beautiful signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala around us. And sometimes we take these things for granted. We take our community for granted. We take our imams and our programs and everything, really. We take everything for granted. So one thing that I learned is just don't take anything or anybody for granted. Always thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his blessings. Remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and don't get caught up. Don't get caught up in this life. Don't get caught up in this life of this world, that you lose sight of what is important and forget to prepare yourself to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this is something, the smallest of the small. And look at us now. Look at the entire world right now. Everybody is devastated, and it's changing a lot of things. A lot of people are getting laid off. A lot of people losing their jobs. A lot of people don't even know how they're gonna go to the grocery store and buy their groceries tomorrow. There are a lot of people who don't know how they're going to pay the rent. So it is definitely the time that you turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Atif. So to kind of keep on par with the questions that are coming in, there's one that's actually pretty similar to the question that was asked, but a little bit different twist to it, and that is, how has life changed for you? So Sheikh Ahmed Billu, if you can tell us, a little bit, how has life changed for you?
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم بسنته إلى يوم الدين. First of all, good to be with all of you tonight. How has life changed for me? I've traveled less. Myself and Sheikh Farhan actually, I was supposed to leave for Umrah on Thursday, and Sheikh Farhan was supposed to leave for Umrah on Saturday.
Today.
This is Sheikh Farhan, you're supposed to be on a flight right now.
Yeah.
I was supposed to greet him in Medina and already be there, and these got canceled about a few weeks before, Jumu'ah and congregational prayers went on pause. But how has life changed? I've been traveling much less, so I've been able to spend much more time with my family. I mentioned to my wife the other day, our youngest is almost 5 months. And I was like, I didn't think I'd get to spend this much time with her. And I've been getting to spend significantly more time with her, just significantly more time with the family, which has been a blessing. And, just trying to stay positive in all of this. And there's so many hidden blessings that we can focus on. Today, I got a chance to review an amount of Quran that I probably haven't reviewed in a few years. And the past few days I've gotten to do some reading that I've been wanting to do for months. So it's just kind of calmed things down in a sense, as hectic as things might be outside and social distancing and not being able to do this and do that. There's so many other things that I've been able to do, whether it's spending time with the kids and family and reading and reviewing Quran. So it's just kind of been a good break from life, if that even makes sense, right? From the hustle and the bustle, as Sister Sundus mentioned, noticing the tree in her backyard, right? You just finding those hidden blessings, those blessings that have been there all along, but we haven't got a chance to experience them or thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them. The different things that we can do and experience just within our household. Like, we don't need to we sometimes think that we need to go outside or meet other people to have fun, but that's not the case. I mean, we could have a good amount of fun and have a full day just staying inside the house. So I think it's made me more cognizant of my time, more cognizant of how I schedule my time, what I do, what are the things that I enjoy doing. Don't get me wrong, I would have loved to be in Medina or Mecca performing Umrah, right? But I haven't focused on that. I haven't, thought about, I wish I was there and I wish this wasn't, just living in the present and, being able to enjoy what Allah has given us from food and safety and security and family and the blessings around us, right? So I think it's just kind of made me more thankful and more able to see the blessings that are around us that we neglect and overlook when things are normal or when there's not a pandemic going around. And also just kind of,
go ahead.
Sorry, okay, go ahead.
No, Sheikh Hassan, or not Sheikh Hassan, Hassan Ilyas has a follow-up for you, and that is, what ayah is on repeat for you? So drop one.
What ayah is on repeat for me?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question. What ayah is on repeat for me? I think the ayah that's on repeat for me is probably Ayatul Kursi. Just because it's something I've been more cognizant about reading in terms of the adhkar, also in terms of just having my daughters read it. So I think it's probably been the ayah that I've read the most. There are many others, but I would think that's probably the one that's been on repeat the most in my mind and on my tongue.
Jazakallah khairan. Sheikh Shahid. So Shahid is with Garden Grove. He's the youth leader there. I don't know if you have anything else that you're doing. If you can just share a little bit about yourself. And then the same question to you, and that is, how has life changed for you after this?
Right.
or
أعوذ
doing
بالله
this?
من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, it's good. It's an honor to be a part of all this whole gathering here, and Yani, it's to be a part of those who are experiencing the community and be a part of this gang here. And may Allah subhanahu bless all the communities that are out there, especially Horth Isaac and our Garden Grove and our youth group out there. My life honestly hasn't changed too much. I'm pretty much have to go into, I have my whole electrical engineering life still going on. And so technically I'm working at home. I've been probably went into the office every single day this week, and probably for half time, and then come back home. And then there's a lot of online content, as you guys all know. So a lot of videotaping and getting your lights ready and doing all that and putting your makeup on. I'm just kidding. Just get everything ready for that's a whole nother thing, how to record yourself. And so I honestly think it's a lot busier. And then you have all the family in the house. So kids trying to jump on you while classes are going on. Like kind of like Sheikh Ahmed mentioned, the kids are crying and they want to be on the video. So but like I said, it hasn't changed so much other than having that closeness with the family. And I think we're all kind of benefiting for that. When you stay with the family a little bit too much, sometimes you have to walk in the backyard, right? The kids might follow you in the backyard though. That's the problem, but alhamdulillah, it's a barakah at the same time. So it hasn't changed too much though. I think we all are missing our community. We're missing the carpet on the masjid, just seeing the walls and just being there. And Sheikh Atif mentioned, we take that for granted a lot. And seeing them through Zoom or just seeing their name pop up is obviously not the same, when you're in a weekly class and stuff like that. So I think it's all hurting us, and that's something that's very passionate to all of us. And it's more meeting the people than actually the physical class, And I think so in general, I think my schedule is pretty much similar, the same, but just kind of at home busy with the family and so forth.
Jazakallah khairan. So Sheikh Farhan, I'm going to change a question. And Arbaz, who we all know, who's on the board of Shura Council, is asking, how can we support our masajid and our imams?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulina wa ba'ad. Just really quickly, it's an honor and pleasure to be with all of you, albeit virtually. And I just want to, highlight the beauty of gatherings like this, or in SoCal. We're all able to come together and sit together. And we're so diverse, right? All of us, especially in terms of our training and where we've studied, we come from different traditions and different backgrounds. And the fact that we all, get along and sit together and can have open discussions is a very beautiful thing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to bless all of you. And secondly, Sheikh Sohail, did you say you just spoke about for an hour about growing plants today?
3 hours, brother, 3 hours. 3 hours I sit and had a conversation with this dude, man.
Did this individual have a particular interest in a plant with medicinal properties?
This guy,
Oh, no, not that kind.
I mean, I don't want to take up the whole show, but this guy was incredible, man. He had this one plant. It's called a miracle plant. And listen, this is true. This is true. Listen. You asked, so I had to respond. So it's this fruit. Listen, it's this fruit from West Africa. You eat it, and after you eat it, anything that you eat after it, even a lemon, becomes sweet.
Allahu Akbar.
He grows all these exotic rare plants and stuff. And so he was showing me all this stuff. And so Allah's creation is incredible, man.
There's no THC in that plant though, right?
No.
Okay, alhamdulillah.
No, yeah.
I thought you were gonna say. I thought
those days are gone, man. Those days are gone. 25, 30 years ago.
All right.
Can we cut that part? Can we cut that part out of the live video, or?
But it's live right now. So, I mean, alhamdulillah, as everyone's been saying, things have been changing so rapidly, and I myself am a little bit. I was surprised at how quickly things changed. I was just telling one of our community members 2 Wednesdays ago, after our class at the masjid, he was asking, "Hey, do you think it's possible that this Friday we might not have Jumu'ah?" And I was like, "What? Are you crazy? What are you talking about?" And then within 24 hours, the decision was made. So things are just changing really rapidly. There's been a lot of adjustments at home. It's been very interesting. My daughter that was with me right now, we have this routine every night where she watches the highlights with me, right? The NBA highlights. So she, one night she came, she's like, hey, can we watch the highlights? Like, no, the NBA has been canceled. So then she goes running to her mom. She's like, hey, Mama, Baba canceled the NBA. So it's been interesting, but to Arbaz's question, how can the community show support to the imams and like the religious leaders? I think one big thing is just checking in on them, right? Send them a text message instead of asking them questions and seeking their advice and their counsel and their guidance. Just ask them how they're doing, have a nice conversation with them. Ask them if they need anything, if they need any support, any help with the family. Keep in contact with them. For our institutions, obviously when people would come on Friday, they had a habit of donating and contributing. Keep those contributions up. Most of our Islamic centers, they do run off of people's generous donations. And perhaps the fact that people aren't coming in person, it might take away from that. So instead of, taking away from that, make sure you continue to contribute to your local center, your local community, your local charities. And that will be a big help. I mean, most of our institutions are run off of people's generous contributions. So I think that would be really important.
Jazakallah khairan. Sheikh Farhan Zubairi is the Dean of Religious Studies at the Institute of Knowledge in Diamond Bar. Also with us is the President of IOK, Institute of Knowledge, Sheikh Norman. I know he's a little bit tired here for the barakah, and his face, mashallah, is good enough for us. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Jazakallah khair. One question.
Can we have Sheikh Norman answer that question as well?
If he's willing to say it.
Yeah,
he's willing to answer, of course.
Share the barakah.
What's the question again?
The question is, how can the Muslim community support their local masajid and imams?
I think the Muslim community should continue to keep up with their weekly, monthly general contributions that they were doing. I think it's imperative that they continue to do that, especially Islamic centers. I think they need to keep that going. Trying times should bring out the best in people. So whatever you are doing, times as such, you should probably double it if you can, only because there's more reward, and sadaqah will always repel calamities like the one we're facing these days. So I think everybody who used to go to a masjid and were attached to an Islamic center, you should keep it going. Sign up monthly, weekly, whatever you can do. You need to keep going. It's the nonprofit institutions are the ones that are hurt the most, and whereas our politicians and bureaucrats around the country are concerned for various businesses and industries, the nonprofits are often neglected. I know there's some stuff in this bill stimulus that is coming out in the form of loans and stuff for nonprofits and stuff, but still, it's at the end of the day, إنما يعمر مساجد الله من آمن بالله. إنما يعمر مساجد الله من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر. The people who sustain and maintain the houses of worship of Allah, after all, are those who believe in Allah and the final day. And that's you and everybody who's listening. So if there's one thing you can do tonight, I would definitely go to the website and the donation page of your local Islamic center and give a charitable contribution on behalf of the family members around you who are living and those who have passed away. So that's one thing I can share with you all this evening.
Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh.
Beautiful, thank you.
We have one question directed to Sheikh Atif by Ahmed Bayoumi. He's asking, after this all subsides and this is over, how can we continue to appreciate the blessings that we are seeing now?
Your mic is muted, Sheikh.
Sheikh Atif is lip syncing. Can somebody fill in for him?
Try to unmute him. It's not working. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, we can hear you now.
No, I forgot the question. Can you repeat it? I'm sorry.
So Ahmed Mayumi is asking you specifically, after all this is over, how can we continue to appreciate the blessings that we are appreciating right now, that we didn't recognize before or forgot before? How can we continue to, show that gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after the fact?
Yeah. Just remind yourself all the time with the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala around you. The blessing of having a family, the blessing of having, a spouse who loves you, children that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in your life to love you. The blessing of having a good health, of being, having a place that you call home. We always need to remind ourselves of these blessings, and these things happens every single day. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever gets up in the morning healthy in his body, he has food for the day, he has a shelter, فَقَدْ حِيزَتْ لَهُ الدُّنْيَا بِمَا فِيهَا. It is as if he owned the entire world. But a lot of us, when you think about the things that you have in your life now, that at one time you were amazed by and so excited about, that now became the very thing that you complain about all the time. This is it's a common thing. Do you remember how many times we pray to marry so-and-so? Ya Allah, I love this one so much. She's going to be an amazing future wife. She's going to be an amazing future, mother. I want her in my life, or how sweet it was when you first got married. Now we are complaining about our spouses. Remember how many times you made dua to have a child? Do you remember how blessed you felt actually to have that child? Now we are complaining about that child, all the time. And the list goes on and on and on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when the Israelites, when they started complaining to Musa alayhi salam about everything, Musa alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said them, وَذَكِّرْهُمْ بِأَيَّامِ اللَّهِ, remind them of the days of Allah. The days of Allah are the days that you were having a problem and you were going around asking so and so and so and so. You go into the people that you love the most, or the people whom they love you the most, and they tell you, Allah, if I could, I would. There's really nothing that I can do for you. So and you couldn't find anybody to help you, and you turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he got you out of trouble. These are the days of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So remember these days all the time. Remember all these days. And it's amazing how this ayah actually came about the Prophet Musa alayhi salam and his followers, because imagine they just had fled Egypt after suffering years of oppression. They just escaped the Pharaoh and his army, and they were under this extreme stress. They were exhausted. They left their homes behind. They were waiting for their leaders, the Prophet Musa alayhi salam, to address them. And you would think that he would talk to them about patience and about, things are going to be better. No. He actually, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, ذَكِّرْهُمْ بِأَيَّامِ اللَّهِ. Remind him with the days of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The days that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved them from the Pharaoh and his oppression. So always remember these blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most famous ayah in the Quran, if you try to count the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will not be able to. Why? Because there are so many. There are so many. So be grateful, be thankful for everything good that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you, everything good that you have in your life. And sometimes it's easy to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when things are going our way. When job is good, when the family is good. But you know what? That doesn't take much faith though. It doesn't take much faith. What about when things are not going our way? What about now? What about now? What about, sometimes people say, I'll be thankful when things get better, when my health improves, when my child becomes better. Being thankful is what causes things to turn around. as somebody said, gratitude activates Allah's favor. Gratitude activates Allah's favor. So don't wait until things turn around. Thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the things that you have now. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Jazakallahu khairan. So I'm gonna throw a question, and it was kind of asked in the chat right now, and that is, how do you personally, what do you personally practice when you're feeling scared? You know, this uncertainty, people are scared, they're worried, and this is a major problem. So what do we do? What do you guys do? What do you practice? And I'm gonna turn this over to Sister Lubna and Sheikh Suhail, you know, with your backgrounds in therapy and.
So two that may seem unrelated. One thing is I constantly remind myself of the verse, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Yeah, and that's in Surah Talaq, verse number 2. And it's so powerful to me because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, is basically reminding us, if we just believe in him and we're God conscious, we're conscious of him, he's gonna find a way out for us. And then continuing in the next ayah, وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ. And he'll provide sustenance from a place that he would have never imagined. وَمَن يَتَّوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. And whoever puts his trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is enough for him. So those two verses together are so powerful. So what do I have to worry about? I'll take my precautions. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who will get affected. I'm bracing myself. And the second thing that seems, oh, how are we going to think about this and how is that positive? But I do think about death more. And I try to talk to my family about it too. We talked about it a little bit, probably not enough, but that's a reality. You know, if we just remind ourselves that our death is already written for us, who said it's going to be from COVID? It could be from COVID-19. It could be randomly we're crossing the street when we get hit by a car. So that reminder that death is imminent. So what are you doing to prepare for it? And not being so afraid of the surroundings, taking the precautions. I definitely say do your social distancing, take your precautions, but not to be so fearful because we want to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the best way possible. And he has already written that for us. So that's what works for me, alhamdulillah.
Bismillah. You know, I think that's a really important question. And I see things from a particular lens because of some of the people that I see in the counseling setting. And, you know, I really felt a lot of empathy and kind of solidarity with people that have as part of their normal life, they have a generalized anxiety disorder, or they have some sort of obsessive compulsive compulsive thinking. And so, you know, as a lot of you have experienced, when you go out to the store or wherever you go out to buy your groceries, you have a lot more consciousness about what's going on around you, your surroundings, what you're touching, who's next to you, how far you are from the next person. And so really it's made me think, wow, some people, they live like this all the time, right? And those are biological realities that people have, physiological realities that are not even necessarily some sort of skewed vision that they have of the world, but this is part of how these people have been, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made certain people with certain conditions. So I've just had a heightened consciousness of that, and just really, I'm not giving any solution to that fear factor, but I'm just talking about, having an empathetic view with other people. One other thing, since you also asked this question in a related reality, is we had in our community, our local community, our first community member pass away from coronavirus. And this was an elder man from Afghanistan, well respected, well loved, has a large, clan of large family here locally in San Fernando Valley, well known family. And and subhanallah, he left this world. It didn't, and so, and you know, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on his soul and make this easy for his family. I spoke to some of the family members and they're devastated because the family wasn't able to be at the graveside. They weren't able to be at his bedside in his last days, and they're having to. And so I say all of that to say that how do you deal with some of the fear? Well, some of the fear is it needs to be the fear is partially based in there. You need to have some fear of what's going on, and I'm really concerned and worried about our elders. I'm really concerned about you know, people who maybe don't take social distancing. You know, the governor of California is saying that 50 to 60% of Californians may be infected. That's a very likely scenario. So if that's a likely scenario, that puts all of our parents in jeopardy, and all of our uncles and aunties, and you know, and if anybody has their grandparents still alive and all of that. So I just, you know, just a word of caution to everybody. It's in our community, and that whole family that I'm talking about, much of the family are showing symptoms of COVID-19, and so it's here in our community. This was a man, by the way, who fought in the jihad in Afghanistan in the 70s and 80s, and you know, he was a real man. He was a man who supported his family and has been supporting his family forever, and supported the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at his time. And but it was this little virus that ultimately, you know, Allah chose for him to leave this world. So it just, I think there is the fear we do have to on some levels overcome it, but on other levels we have to be absolutely conscious of it.
Jazakallah khairan. Sheikh Mustafa, you want to add a few words?
Yeah,
question.
sure. Kind of like what Sheikh Sahil was saying is that, you know, we have to be aware of the fear, you know, aware of the situation as it exists. But at the same time, I think what really happens is that a lot of people, they don't have a proper assessment of the situation, and that's because it's very hard for people to determine, you know, what's really going down, what's really happening. Even experts are confused. You know, everyone seems to not understand what the real risk is. You know, what really helped me is I've been talking to a lot of medical professionals, doing a lot of research. Particularly, you know, my father is old as well. He's 80 years old now. I'm concerned about him. I'm concerned about many other individuals in the community. So, you know, understanding what the actual risk is something very difficult because we're not sure exactly what it is, and we get different statistics, and we get you know, so many different things happening. But you know, there was an article by a Canadian astronaut who used to go to the International Space Station, and he said that there's a special training that astronauts get for two main reasons. Number one, they're going to be in isolation, and number two, they face a lot of fear because they're completely by themselves, and they're sitting for 6 months in space or a year in space. And he says one of the most important things that helps him that they give in the training is that you have to try to understand what the actual risk of this is. And, you know, when I was just doing some, you know, research on the subject, you know, there's a lot of things people are talking about. They're saying, you know, I mean, I'm not trying to downplay the risk at all, right? Like there's a risk. This is a huge epidemic. It's a pandemic. But at the same time, it's very important to understand this is not the bubonic plague. This is not like illnesses that have happened in the past. If you just look at some of the statistics, it's pretty interesting. The National Cancer Institute in 2018, they said 609,000 people will die from cancer, right, in a year. If you just divide that by the number of months, and then you calculate how many people have died from the coronavirus, still it's serious, but it's minuscule, right? Just imagine, just take a guess. I'm going to ask you, Sheikh Tariq, how many people do you think die every year in road crashes, just in car crashes? If you were to take a guess.
I think it's 100,000 a year,
Good
or is
guess.
that alcohol related?
Good guess. Good guess. Anyone else want to take a guess? Anyone on our group here? It's 1.25 million. 1.25 million people die every year just from car accidents. So basically, I was looking at the statistic, and I'm looking at, okay, what's the possibility that, someone, from my family or someone that's very close to me, what's the likelihood that they're going to die from the coronavirus versus from a car accident, from a heart attack, from cancer, from this, from that? The list just kept going on and on and on and on. And then what that did was, it's just like, wait a minute. Okay, now I understand in perspective. So we get the social distancing, but the moment you kind of understand, okay, the actual risk that people are very afraid of, what they're really concerned about, that actual risk is not what people think it really is. And I think having an understanding of reality, relative to relative to other things that we have an understanding of, it kind of drives the point home. And I think that's very important for people to reflect upon, because I'm getting people telling me that they are absolutely in panic, they're stressed out, they're having breathing difficulties, breathing problems, they don't know what's going to happen. So that's number one, is understanding what the real risk is, number one. And number two, my suggestion is that you have to understand, we are limited human beings. We cannot know what's going to happen tomorrow. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's going to happen tomorrow. We can't even know the weather, right? How many times has the weather forecast been wrong? You look at it and you're like, oh, it's going to be sunny. And then all of a sudden you go out and it's cloudy, or it starts raining. You think for a whole week, I try and plan my clothes for a week looking at the weather forecast, and it's wrong. It's fairly wrong quite often. So the thing is, human beings cannot know that many things. And when we start getting into the idea of thinking we can predict what's going to happen, we can prepare, but to predict or think it has to be the way that we want it to be, or we think it's going to be, that becomes very problematic. And that's going to contribute to that panic and that fear. Just relax and realize Allah. When we say Allahu A'lam, Allah knows best, Allah knows what's going to happen tomorrow, that just brings a sense of peace and comfort and security in my own heart, realizing that, I don't know, and it's okay that I don't know, because Allah knows.
And if I may add to that, Sheikh Mustafa, I think that balance, our deen is always is this deen of moderation and balance in all affairs. And I think that applies here just as anywhere else, any other matter that we concern ourselves with lives, right? And so having that fine balance and walking that line. And I think, and it shifts, and just like the concept of hope and fear, the ulama, they talk about al-khawf wal-raja. When do you have hope? When do you have fear with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And they talk about when you get towards the end of your life, your hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be more, because now you're going to meet Allah sooner, and so on and so forth. So I think the same thing applies here with the fear factor, for lack of better way of articulating it. Amongst certain populations within our community, we do that conscious level of being worried about, where I'm going, what I'm doing, who I'm interacting with, needs to be a little bit more, right? And I'm talking about our elders and maybe others who have pre-existing conditions or whatnot and so forth. And for others who don't, maybe not. But at the same time, not to, and I've had people in my community tell me, look, can you talk to our young people? They're not practicing social distancing. They're going out, they're hanging out, they're getting together, they're doing stuff. And so there needs to be some balance out there. So I think, it's I don't think there's, and I'm just making a comment, an addendum to what you're saying. Just we should always look at it in that light, of striking that balance based upon who we are, what our conditions are, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. Jazakumullah khair.
Just to kind of add on to this discussion, I think in being in the position of like imams or scholars and chaplains, one of the areas that we focus a lot on is people's spiritual health. And I think in times like this, especially when people are feeling perhaps scared and anxious, which is totally natural, right? It's part of the human experience to be scared of things that are uncertain. And Sheikh Omar Hussein was actually mentioning a really good thing, is that tell people to not consume so much news, right? Obviously, what we consume and watch has a big effect upon us. And if we're watching this 24/7 news cycle and it's constantly talking about COVID-19 and the death toll and whatever else it may be, it may create unnecessary fear within people as well. But getting back to that spiritual care, I think it's important for us to really, really connect people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. right? Have people really connect to Allah in times like these, and explain to them the framework Islam gives for dealing with difficulties and challenges and problems, and how we navigate through these things by connecting with our Lord and Creator, and truly understanding this concept of tawakkul, right? This whole concept of what it means to truly rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where we do take all the precautions, right? We do follow all these guidelines of social distancing and, washing our hands for, 20 seconds with soap and water and all that fun stuff. You take care of all these precautions, and then the end result you leave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And really, really helping people understand that concept and internalize it. That is something that we should be focusing on and helping them. And that might help, allay some people's fears. In addition to that, I think it's really, really important for people to recognize that challenges and being afraid is basically part of the human experience, and it's a sign of Allah's love. As we all know that our prophets and messengers, they were the most severely tested of individuals. أشد الناس بلاء الأنبياء ثم الأمثل فالأمثل. And in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He consoles the Prophet ﷺ by giving the examples of these past prophets and messengers. وَكُلًّا نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الرُّسُلِ مَا نُثَبِّتُ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. That all these stories and incidents and past narratives that we're telling to you, مَا نُثَبِّتُ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. We're doing it to provide strength to your heart. Because the Prophet ﷺ also, as a human being, would also experience fear, right? In certain situations, he would also experience things of the unknown. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself would console and comfort him through these stories of past prophets and messengers. So perhaps in that role, in that capacity, we should be doing the same thing as well.
Beautiful, Sheikh Farhan. Thank you.
Sister Sundus, I mean, you're probably seeing a lot at the hospital. Can you share anything about this, please?
Bismillah. I appreciate all of the comments that were already made about this idea of fear, and certainly fear and anxiousness are two of the leading emotions that we have to deal with among patients and staff. And in the past family, now there are no visitors allowed at the hospital for obvious reasons. But what people might find helpful is that when you do feel anxiety, anxiousness, and fear, find somebody who you trust and who's a really good listener, and talk to them about it. And specifically ask yourself, or have the person ask you to dig a little bit deeper. What is it that you're scared of? What do you fear? So is it, I fear that I'm going to die. So dig a little bit deeper. What is it about dying that you're afraid of? Is it, that you haven't lived your full life? I mean, really start, if we're talking about using this time to get to know oneself, part of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is to know your Lord, get to know yourself, your own soul. If you really want to dig deep and get to know yourself, start asking yourself these harder questions. What is it that you're afraid of? What's giving you anxiety exactly about this entire situation? And the key is to find somebody who's a good listener and who can just mirror back to you a little bit, like reflect back to you the statements that you're saying, so that you can hear yourself and start to process these things out loud. And the best listener of all is Rabbil Alameen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's really striking that we don't necessarily get answers from Him, but I don't think in those times when we're really emotional, when we're upset, when we're angry, when we're depressed, when we're in that state and we're making dua with our full heart present, we're not looking for answers. We're not looking for advice. We're merely looking for an outlet for us to be able to verbalize what's surfacing for us in our hearts. And we pray and we hope and we know that what we fall short in conveying in our words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows already what's in our hearts. And so just that there's a cathartic kind of way to dua, which is why we feel better after doing it, subhanAllah, is because you just release. And I think part of that fear and that anxiety is having somebody witness that for you and to be able to release it in that healthy way, and not necessarily have to solve it in that moment, but have somebody hold it for you, hold it with you. And that's basically what we do in the hospital as chaplains. And when you can't find that person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never let us down in that way.
Thank you so much. There's a interesting comment by Sajid Sinda. He's saying that these online programs that have come about because of our current quarantine situation, lockdown, has really given a lot more access to a greater amount of people in the Muslim community than before. And he's hoping that these types of services continue even afterwards. Definitely, I've heard this before, and I think you bring up a great point. So thank you for sharing that. To go to another question, Fimun Dogar is asking about Ramadan. It looks like that our situation is not going to change before Ramadan. So he's asking, what are some programs you guys are thinking of? What do you plan on doing to kind of keep that spirit going? Sheikh Farhan, do you guys have anything going on at IOK? Planning for anything?
So I believe we have a lot of things in discussion and planning. And as I mentioned, things are changing so fast and so rapidly that I think every day, myself, Sheikh Nu'man, any of the other shuyukh that are there on campus, whatever day, at least for 1-2 hours a day, we just sit there and start brainstorming and talking and bouncing ideas off of each other of how we can serve the community in this time. So just like you said, it seems like we might not be able to celebrate Ramadan in our masajid this year, especially the beginning. I mean, we can count out this whole entire month of May and perhaps even April. And I hope not. I really, really hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, brings life back to normal sooner than later and allows us to enjoy Ramadan in the masjid. And, just thinking about this it makes you really sad. Ramadan is that time of the year where the whole community gets together. Everyone's in the masjid. It's packed. People are breaking bread together, eating, meeting, greeting. You're worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a beautiful experience. Ramadan is something that, myself, my family, we really look forward to every single year. And since we're not going to have that physical space, I think it's important for all of us to really think about creating that virtual space for everybody and continue to provide programs that are focused around Quran, right? That are focused around connecting people to the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to connect them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. And, just maybe coming up with people, helping them manage their time. Time management, especially in this era now where we're not really having as structured lives as before, where we don't have to wake up at, maybe 6 a.m. in the morning and get ready and hit the freeway and sit in traffic for 2 hours. Where at home we have more time on our hands. And we live in an era where there's so many distractions around and, we're constantly distracted with technology. Helping people manage their time and coming up with a schedule that they can stick to and follow would be really important. So I would suggest every masjid, plan for their programs for now, that have maybe a program you're offering every single day where communal recitation of the Quran. That, hey, as a community, we're going to get together, we're going to recite these certain verses, and we'll go through the translation, as well as a brief explanation as well. And keep those motivational talks up and remind people about the fada'il of Ramadan. I think we're trying to plan a seminar for preparing for Ramadan. We were going to do it in person on April, I believe it was 19th, but I think we're just going to, transition to it being virtual as well. So I think every masjid should just keep going and planning, and they should plan for like it's not going to be in person for now at least.
Jazakallah khairan. Sheikh Shahid, one of your youthies is here, and mashallah, he's very excited and proud of you, it seems like. Do you guys have anything going on at ISOC?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing that Sheikh Farhan mentioned. Like, it's probably going to be a Zoom Ramadan, right? Everything's going to be on Zoom. We might even break fast together on Zoom, who knows? But like at ISOC, we are planning 2 routes, a plan A and a plan B. Now, plan A obviously is in person, and that is maybe a bit optimistic. But yeah, it's pretty much everything is going to be as much lectures and reminders and classes, and even like read the Quran together challenges that people could join in together and feel like they're a part of something, that they could join in, at least hear some synopsis of it, or people could put their feedback, forums. We got to start thinking about all these different things now on an online type of environment for our Ramadan. And so like Sheikh Farhan mentioned, that is extremely sad. I think we're going to have a big spiritual impact on our community, and not seeing each other, not in just being in for Taraweeh, as we all know how much a big impact that plays on our iman, just seeing other believers, right? Seeing other people praying, right? And the chai also, subhanAllah, so we're definitely going to miss the chai. But so that's something that, like I said, it's probably going to be a Zoom Ramadan. That's probably going to, I'm coining the term right now. So I want to let you guys know I'm the first one that started this. But inshallah ta'ala, you know, it's unfortunate, but like Sheikh Ataf mentioned, this is a time to reflect on what maybe we took for granted. We wish we were in those Taraweeh lines and not in the back with the chai or with our other friends, and now we probably won't even have that at all. And that's really a time to reflect for our love for the masajid and hearing of the Quran. And like they always say, like, you don't know something until it's gone. And so hopefully have a deeper appreciation for it. So it might be a filtering, season for us for this year.
Say something real quick, Sheikh Tariq.
Please.
Yeah, in regards to the fear part, I think what I've experienced is that when you're fearful, you're either going to act out of sanity or panic. And if you're acting out of sanity, you'll adapt. And a good example of that is that people who are acting out of fear, and I don't know what is propelling them. I mean, about just panicking and buying and hoarding toilet paper, for instance, right? If you were sane, you just adapt to a bidet.
I'm out, by the way, man. I need some loners. So,
but can someone here just explain to me what's the fear about toilet paper? I just don't get it. I haven't been able to wrap my head around this yet.
There was an article written about it, actually.
Please.
You have the statistics for it, Sheikh
And
Mustafa?
I think many of our listeners would like to know.
Yeah, so there was an article written about why is it that anytime when people go into panic mode, anytime there's an emergency, why do they rush for toilet paper? So just because it's something psychological in their mind that they're thinking, what is the one thing where, they would be most uncomfortable getting stuck in a position and that position just happens to be a position, on the toilet. They don't know how to, clean themselves or something like that. So it's viewed as an irrational reaction. And they know deep down in the back of their mind that this is not something that they absolutely need, but it's that panic that sets in that some people start doing it. And then what ends up happening, it's also a very visible thing in the supermarket. So when it seems like the stock is going down, everyone has like FOMO, right? It's like fear of missing out. Like if I don't buy my toilet paper now, no, there's not going to be any toilet paper left for anyone. So I'm going to go have to buy it as well. There's been a lot of research on how people know and in the back of their mind that it's not really that important, but they end up doing it for these two reasons.
Right. And to speak to that, I think fear sells, right? When you speak about fear and about resources, it sells. And that's the type of economy and nation we live in. And this is why it's upon, mashallah, people like yourselves to bring sanity to this type of calamity, inshallah. Thank you.
I was going to say, if on a less serious note, if y'all want to go into a very profitable market right now, but not in a monopolizing or taking advantage sort of way, of as some people are when calamity hits, get into bidet installation, man. Make a killing right now, bro. Bidet installing. Sheikh Shahid, man, you're calling, bro.
I have no response to that, actually.
I don't think
face,
the
man. I just
electrical
love your
engineer
face. I just love to see you smile, man. I just had to put a smile on your face.
Thanks for hell. I thought you were going to say a greenhouse. What's it called? Dispensary.
That's why Sheikh Sahil's buying all those plants. He could use those leaves for, he could use those leaves for some other use. You know what I mean? Those miracle leaves.
But I think the question was more, we were talking about Ramadan and Ramadan coming up. I wanted to say one more thing in regards to that. Look, when I'm looking at all these orders and recommendations right now, I think the most recent here in Southern California puts us at April 17th, 19th, between what the Department of Health organizations are saying and what the governor is saying. And then, what the CDC and other health officials are recommending. If they're saying, look, let's continue to stay home for the month of April, there just might be a chance. There might just be a chance that we might get Ramadan in the beginning of May, And I think according to projections right now, Ramadan starts off on April 24th, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And if we flatten this curve as a community and as a society by complying with social distancing and isolating ourselves and sheltering ourselves in our homes and places and what have you, there might just be a silver lining of getting Ramadan back, perhaps. Wallahu alam, something to think about.
So I actually like Trump's optimism with Easter Sunday.
Whose side are you on, man?
He's a Trump supporter. He's a Trump supporter. You know him.
I was going to wear the MAGA hat tonight, but I decided not to.
Just don't endorse, Sheikh. Jazakumullah khair for all the comments. To switch the question, the question now I'd like to ask to Sheikh Ahmed, what is one piece of advice that you were given or you heard that has helped you during this time?
Okay. First of all, I want to ask Sheikh Nu'man. Sheikh Nu'man, you have toilet paper? Yes or no?
I'm gonna take the fifth on that.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna answer that. He actually called me a few days ago, and he had to drive all the way from Diamond Bar to Irvine to get toilet paper. Right. So the struggle is real for Sheikh Nu'man. Alhamdulillah, I was able to secure a bag of toilet paper last week. And we actually needed some. I wasn't hoarding any. And kid you not, like when I got to Costco, sure enough, and I was able to snag a bag of toilet paper, it felt like Eid. Like I felt like I had accomplished something that day, right?
Was it like kissing the black stone almost?
I'm not going to answer that because I might get blasted by someone else. But
guys, much for us tomorrow. So
it definitely brought about a level of happiness, right? I'm running out of baby wipes, like seriously, and there's too many kids in this house, and I need to find baby wipes soon, inshallah. So make dua for me. What's one piece of advice? SubhanAllah, I can't remember who said it. I was listening to someone online, but they said something along the lines of that. Make sure that when this ends, whether it's hopefully in the beginning of May, but whenever it is, whether it's May, June, July, August, and only Allah knows, but whenever it ends, just make sure that you're not the same person that you were when you entered this, right? There has to be some change. Just like we say it, it sounds cliche. We say it usually at the beginning of Ramadan, that, hey, at the beginning of Ramadan, this is a training camp. This is a time for purification, to increase to get close to Allah, to get near to Allah, and just make sure that you're not the same person that you were when you entered Ramadan. When Ramadan finishes, the whole goal is to have more taqwa, to feel nearer to Allah, to have a better relationship with the Quran. The same could be applied here, just on a deeper level. That when this ends, whether it's going to be 60 days, 90 days, 180 days, and only Allah knows, that we're not the same person that we were when we entered it. Like, especially in terms of our relationship with Allah, that our prayer has had to have improved. Like, it's a non-negotiable, essentially. Like, there is so much time now just to slow down our prayers, to focus on our prayers, to do the things that we wanted to do, whether it was listening to lectures, reciting Quran, spending time with our family, working on personal flaws that we feel like we have individually, right? We just can't be the same person that we were when we entered this, this social distancing and this lockdown or this shelter in place, whatever the case may be. We have to be better people when this ends, and that's on an individual level, right? Something that really made me reflect, and I'll end with this, is just sometimes, there's so many people in our contacts, right? So many friends, so many relatives, so many family members that we just don't connect with, right? Because we say life is too busy and this and that. And, sometimes what happens is you hear about the death of somebody, right? And they weren't 60, they weren't 70, they were 20, they were 30, they were 40. And you ask yourself, why didn't I reach out to that person one more time? Why didn't I have a conversation with that person? Just the other day, I think it was Thursday, it was around Dhuhr time. I had finished praying Dhuhr in the house, and I finished, and my phone started ringing, and it was Sheikh Yasser Bridges. I was like, okay, what's going on? Like, why is he calling me like right now? Like, I haven't spoken to him on the phone in, I don't know, maybe a year, 2 years, I don't know. So he calls me and he's like, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. I'm like, wa alaikum salam. And I'm like expecting something urgent or something. He's like, I just called you to see how you're doing and how's your family and how's this. And I was so taken aback, like, wow, like, subhanAllah, like Sheikh Yasser Bridges, he's probably got a million more important things to do than to call me, but to take the time out and to reach out to people to just connect with people that matter, that you've crossed paths with, right? So improving on so many different levels, our connection with Allah and then our relationship with individuals.
Jazakallahu khairan. Sheikh Mustafa, you want to add to that? Because I want to put you in the segue that to back to Ramadan. Could you comment, please?
Sure. So the question was about what's the one thing that I've learned, right?
No, what is some advice someone has given you or you heard that has helped you out during this time?
Right. Yeah. So
You're not allowed to make up your own questions, please.
yeah, it's kind of. I was reframing his original question, but yeah, jazakumullah khairan for that. So this is advice that I got a long time ago, and I just have to keep reminding myself of it. And that's one of the things that I have to constantly, even now, I have to remind myself. And really, I find what ends up happening is, when we're involved in technology, and I've always been a techie, computer science major, all that stuff. Since I was in college, when chatting first came out, for those of you who are old, I'm starting to feel old now. If you remember, AOL Instant Messenger came out, people were chatting. There was like IRC chat. There was like all these different, chat things, and people would just have all these chat windows open. And as soon as we were able to have more than one chat window open at a time, it just like changed like the world for me. It's like you can talk to like 10 people at the same time, and you get into like a chat room, you have like different boxes open. And what I realized is, like even when I was at UC Irvine, I was just I realized I'd spend like time in my computer lab, supposed to be working on like a coding project, and I just wasted like 4 hours chatting or 5 hours chatting, and my entire like day is gone. And when it finally dawned on me that, this is a really bad practice. I'm not able to control myself. The moment that I start chatting with someone, chatting with another person, someone starts talking to me, it's just completely sucks up all my time. And then I look back in the day, I'm like, I didn't do a lot of things that I should have done and that I wanted to do. So for me, really, that's a reminder that I got, by reading a lot of these, different books about, unplug and everything. And I think even in this time, the same thing's happening. Is that, my phone is filling up with the WhatsApp forwards. I get like 100 people forwarding me like videos that are like 10 minutes each, 5 minutes each, 20 minutes each. And there's kind of this expectation that you're supposed to be plugged in because everyone is constantly available and everyone is constantly plugged in. And if that expectation is there that you're supposed to watch everything and read everything that everyone is sending you, then there's got to be a way to distance yourself from that respectfully. So what I do is I do a few things. Number one, I notify people, and I was told to do this, notify people that, I can't be, I'm not going to be watching all the videos you send me, number one, right? Now, number two, try not to be on too many groups, like too many chat groups or something like that. It's taking up a lot of your time. And number three, just I put my phone on mute. And if I find I can't control myself, even I still keep looking at it, I open it, I'll just put on airplane mode, because we use our phones for everything. We use it for reading Quran. We use it for scheduling, for a calendar, for almost everything. So, you still want to utilize the benefits of your phone without having to go back to like one of those old non-smartphones or whatever. But it's very important to have that disconnect. So if you can do it for a day, great. It's probably going to help you. If you can't because of your work and what you do, maybe you just disconnect for 4 hours a day. Just put your phone on airplane mode and just feel the difference, And I do that. I do it for 2 hours, or I do it even for an hour sometimes. And I just even the feeling of knowing that I'm going to have 1 hour of peace and nobody, of like private time, it's a great feeling. And I think it's really important for people to understand the real benefit to that, the psychological benefit, and how getting overwhelmed with those things, thinking that you're doing some work or you're achieving something, but maybe you're not. I think that can be very dangerous. So that's one reminder that I was given, and I remind myself constantly, and it just helps me tremendously. And I just recommend everyone just tries it, once in a while.
Jazakallah khair. Definitely a tough thing to do, but beneficial. I personally have noticed that during this this problem, especially when it first started. The amount of messages I was receiving was so immense that it was stressing me out, and I can actually feel it. So be careful in that regard. So Sheikh Mustafa, you're still here, and I know recently you wrote an article for California Islamic University about the whole virtual khutbas and virtual followings, and a question was asked about Taraweeh. You know, can there be virtual Taraweeh where you have a qari reciting and people are following him from their homes? Can you just very quickly, because we don't have much time left here, just over 10 minutes, give a response to that?
Sure. So it is in the article if you check it out. But the short answer to that is that, you know, when you're praying in a group, there's a jama'ah, you're supposed to physically be there. So you can't just kind of virtually join, because if you could, then I could virtually join you inside your house, and we have a few other people on Zoom and we're all praying together. One of you is the imam. We're not really physically there. So there's a physical presence that is required to be in a group. When it comes to Taraweeh, what's going to happen in the worst case scenario, like we're planning for it, right? So let's say you want, you know, Taraweeh, one of the great things is about praying Taraweeh. We're going to have, here's an option. We're still deciding what to do, but there'll be a qari, beautiful voice, beautiful recitation, someone who knows, you know, the Quran, more Quran than you know, and you can watch him live streamed. You can listen to the Quran. You're just not going to be following along in the prayer. So what you can do is, why do people, you know, value Taraweeh so much? Number one, usually it has to do with the beauty of the recitation. Number two, it has to do with the amount of Quran that is being read, right? And then number three, there's also kind of that feeling of, you know, being together with the group. So you can kind of get all three of those things without necessarily having to try to say, I'm going to virtually follow you in the prayer. So while you're listening, you can listen, follow along with your own mushaf or something like that. You can also benefit from the beauty of the recitation. And what you can do possibly is when the imam is going into, you know, ruku', going into bowing, going into prostration and all that, that'll be a great opportunity for people who don't know Arabic to maybe even go through some of the translation as well, so they can kind of see what's going on, or even, you know, live translation, they can go through that as well. So yeah, the short answer is, you know, no, it's not allowed according to the unanimous consensus of scholars, pretty much virtual consensus, pun intended, of scholars throughout history, that you have to physically be there to have a gathering. So in case we're not able to do Taraweeh, you can pray Taraweeh at home. And in fact, the Prophet, peace be upon him, he used to pray Taraweeh at home in the beginning, and the companions used to pray in the beginning at home. So we can pray Taraweeh at home with whatever verses we know. And if you want to follow the recitation, because it's a beautiful recitation and they know more Quran, and you got to get a feeling of other people being there, that part you can do online. So you could do a hybrid combination of your own Taraweeh while tuning in separately to another Taraweeh that's going on.
Jazakallah khairan. Sheikh Farhan, you want to add something?
Just to kind of add on to that, I think it's important for people to kind of segment their acts of worship. So people are really emotionally connected to Ramadan, and they're emotionally connected to Taraweeh, and they feel like that is their Ramadan. Like if they don't pray Taraweeh in the masjid and they don't get their Khatm al-Quran with the Imam, they feel like they've missed out on something. So just recognize that, look, your Khatm al-Quran, if you're able to do it, you can do it on your own, no problem. Maybe you have more time to actually read on your own. But if you're not in the masjid, you're not praying Taraweeh, if you do it at your home with whatever amount of Quran you know, you still get the same reward, the same exact reward. Because the hadith just says, Man qama Ramadan imanan wa ihtisaba, ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbi. Right? Whoever stands in Ramadan in prayer with iman, right, with faith, with conviction, ihtisaba, some say with sincerity, expecting, hoping reward, then all their previous sins will be forgiven. So that same intention, that same mindset, that same attitude can be done at home with your family. And if that's the situation we're in, we should make the best of it, and don't feel like you're missing out on anything. Just, whatever amount of Quran you know, establish a Taraweeh at home with your family. And if you want to enjoy recitation, again, you can, join in online with some of the programs, listen to recitation, and segment. Maybe a portion of the day you're listening to recitation, a portion of the day you're reading the translation and the explanation, and then at night you're praying it with your family. So I just want to emphasize that people should not feel like they're missing out or losing on something, or somehow the reward is going to be less, and feel bad and low about that. Just recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is infinitely merciful, and his reward is vast and immense, and you will get that reward at home as well, inshallah.
Jazakallah khairan. So in the last few minutes, I'm going to ask this question to each and every one of us. If you kind of keep it short so that we can all get through it by 9:30. And that is, what can be a person's biggest loss and what can be their biggest gain? So advising the community, what is the biggest gain that they can get out of this and what can be their biggest loss? So Sheikh Farhan, since you're on the screen, let's start with you.
Biggest loss, I would say what Sheikh Ahmed was mentioning earlier, that if you are the same person after this as you were before, you've definitely missed out on something. Right? This is an opportunity to look inwards, to kind of, reassess our lives and reassess our relationships and reassess our commitment to our own faith and our own deen, and kind of start making those changes. So if we're the same person we are after this and as we were before, then we're definitely at a loss. In terms of gain, there's so much time now to like kind of introspect and look inwards. I think that in of itself is a gain, and we can highlight those things that perhaps we have our own shortcomings and weaknesses in, and work upon them. I myself, one of the things I struggled with greatly before this was actually spending time at home and spending time with the family. I was constantly going from one place to the other, and constantly engaged in some sort of program or whatever it may be. And now this gave me time to actually be locked down at home and spend more time with my children and my spouse. And it's something that I need to work on as well, and make sure that I maintain that after this as well.
Jazakallah khairan. Umar Hussein is with us. Umar Hussein, for those who may or may not know him, is a SoCal, he's from SoCal, but for some reason he went to San Antonio or Texas, whatever, for some reason. His father, I see him a lot at my masjid, and he's always telling me, Omar is here this weekend. He's always excited when he comes. So if Omar can also comment on this, we'd love to hear his voice.
Wa alaikum. Jazakallah khair for calling me out, Sheikh Tariq. Appreciate that. So I think this was my Umja conference substitute meeting. So I wanted to see you all. So alhamdulillah, able to see you. As for the question, I think the biggest loss would be losing sight of our long-term goals. So I think it's easy to get kind of caught up in the moment and then forget about what's whether it's school or a project or whatever the case may be. I think it's really important also to preserve sanity. And in terms of gain, Allah works in ways we don't understand. There is no excuse to not be connected to the community now. I mean, you can just roll over in your bed and you be connected. And we've actually seen this in our community. So I don't know, maybe that's an indication that I'm not doing a very good job, but we see people, it's so easy to connect, and they're joining in and participating. So alhamdulillah, it's a wonderful thing to see. And one just last thing I'll say, which I hope is not too controversial, and it's not self-serving. Wallahi, I say this with sincerity, but I think during times of crisis, as dysfunctional as we may seem as Muslims in America, the religious scholarship really is the backbone of how we handle difficulty and how we grow and what's going to happen to come. So even though it can seem very challenging at times, I encourage us all, to keep at it, and with Allah's help, inshallah, we will keep taking steps forward. Barakallahu feek.
Jazakallah khairan. Sister Chaplain Sundus.
A really good question. Biggest gain, I would say freedom. I think that through this process, we're all individually recognizing how little we actually need in order to reach our potential. And that goes for everything in terms of entertainment, in terms of food, in terms of tangible things that are around us. We really don't need much. And going into the month of Ramadan, where this theme is also reinforced of how little we need of sustenance and drink, and how much we really need to be emptied in order to be filled with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I think that we can gain some freedom because we are a slave to our needs. And once we detach from that, and this process is helping us. SubhanAllah, I heard this earlier and I thought it was really striking that Ramadan always seems to come really quickly, like we're not prepared for it. We're always caught off guard. We find ourselves in the last 10 days or the 10 days coming up to Ramadan, buying a bunch of groceries and stocking our freezers and doing all of these things that are reminiscent of this time, and focusing maybe perhaps on the things that we shouldn't be focusing on. And so maybe this is going to prepare us a little bit more for the month that is coming up, the blessed month. And what are we losing? I think we can all lose this sense of guilt and shame that I'm hearing a little bit from certain community members about not doing enough in this time. And I think we could stand to lose that because while it's really admirable and it's really important to set spiritual goals for ourselves, we also want to be realistic about what we can accomplish. And we want to make it about the quality and not about the quantity. So, figure out what it is that connects you to your Lord. Put plans together, and you may accomplish them and you may not. But as we know, our failings and our shortcomings are actually going to help us be humbled in front of our Lord and remember that we're dependent on Him and Him only. And sometimes failing and then trying again and failing and trying again is better than accomplishing and feeling like we did it and we're superior and we're better because we memorized X amounts of pages or whatever. So I hope that we can focus on this time and going into Ramadan about it not being a checklist of things that we need to accomplish, but rather how can we be? How can we sit? How can we really connect? How can we really ask the hard questions? And even take time off Wi-Fi to really isolate.
Jazakumullahu khairan. Sheikh Shahid.
I'll just quickly, since we're running out of time, I'll just talk about something that we could really all gain is that our whole introspective of ourselves. A lot of us say that if I had more time, I would read more Quran, or I'll pray my sunnah instead of, folding up the prayer rug right after the Fajr, or I would spend more time with my spouse or my kids, or I might actually fix this in the house or clean this, if you will. And so this is a great time when there's no sports. You can't go to the movie theater. You can't go to Starbucks and, spend time with your friends or talk, or, you have all this. It really shows your true self, who you really are and what you actually do with your time, whether that's on Netflix the whole time, or you're now actually spending time with your family or your spouse and you're actually helping the kitchen. You probably never did it before. So it really shows you who you really are and what your character is. And that should tell you what maybe you need to work on. And if you're finding a hard time where you're still not maybe reading as much Quran, even if that's one of your goals, or, focusing on your prayer on time, when you're at work, you are pushing it towards the end of the time or whatever the case may be, then you have no excuse here to say that I have to leave at 6 o'clock to beat traffic. So my Fajr is, off, or whatever the case may be, that you have time to get that all, squared away. And if you really have that in your heart and you really wanted it, then you will see it now. And I think that's something that will really show you right now. And I think that's something that all of us could gain if we really were really about that life, if you will. And if we were just kind of lip service. So, and obviously we try to achieve that now. Of course, it's hard to change the whole schedule. We all know, working from home and so forth. But if it's really there, then inshallah ta'ala, we'll see those efforts put in.
Jazakallah khairan. Sheikh Atif.
Yeah, in addition to all this profound advices from the brothers and the sisters, the gain and the loss will be in just one thing, is to understand trials. If you understand trials, if you understand how to respond to trials, then that's a gain. If you don't know how to respond to trials after that, then it's a big loss. There's a book called Al-Balaya wal-Mihan by Al-Izz ibn Abd Salam. He said one of the benefits of trials is realizing the many benefits, or the many hidden benefits that it contains. And so, عَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. You might dislike something but it's good for you. And he gave that example of the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam and his wife when they went to Egypt and the trials that they went through with the ruler of Egypt. And he said that one of the wisdom of this trial that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened up the heart of the king of Egypt to Ibrahim alayhi salam and his wife Sarah, and he gave him Hajar, as a gift. Later on, he married her. She bore Ismail alayhi salam, and from whose progeny was born the master of mankind, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the gain is to understand the trials and to trust the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The loss is complaining about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not understanding how the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala works.
Jazakallah khairan. Sheikh Mustafa?
Yeah, no, alhamdulillah. I second what everyone has said. Alhamdulillah, for the sake of time, I will just remind people to utilize their time. I think we've gained a lot of time that we never had before for many people. And it's just a great opportunity to utilize that. So with that, I will save time by stopping here, inshallah.
Jazakallah khairan. Sister Lubna, Ustad Lubna and Sheikh Suhail.
I'd also like to, just talk about the gain super quickly. That it is amazing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has given this opportunity to be home. And like one of the brothers had mentioned, I forgot who, that we can't even, can't even tune into certain things that we normally tune into or go to certain places that were so basic to go to. So it's interesting that along with our focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the focus is on the home front. What things need to be fixed, whether that be relationship wise or actually things around the home or cleaned up. It's so amazing that we've been given this opportunity and we definitely want to take advantage of it, inshallah.
Yeah, and I second that, and just to expand on that a little bit, the family relationships, subhanAllah, are so important. The husband and wife, and we hear a lot of these webinars and things have come out in these last 2-3 weeks in the Muslim community nationwide, and some of them are entitled how to stay sane while staying home during this time. I feel that I have a very big problem with that sort of titling, that's put on these programs, because that means that's insinuating that the default is that you won't be happy by spending more time with your loved ones, which is very, I see it. This should be seen as an opportune time to develop deeper bonds that should already be there. And if those bonds are not there, well, then this is a time to really fully introspect, spend time, and analyze and delve into our relationships to see how we can make those relationships better, whether it be with our spouse, whether it be with our teenage children, whether it be with our parents, whether it be our far off relatives. If people are living at home by themselves, a single mom, a single guy, all kind of different family constructs that are out there. We're not all just nice cookie cutter mom and dad and 2 kids sort of families. All of the different family constructs that are out there to improve those relationships, I think that's primary. I think it's primary. What a loss if we sit through a whole month or 2 or 3 of staying, whatever the terminology they use, staying at home, and we haven't improved those relationships. What a loss, subhanAllah, what a loss. Because that's our family unit that needs to be strong for us to be strong and for our communities to be strong. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to, and those families that are struggling. And I'm going to make a plug here, and it's not I don't call it a shameless plug. I call it an important plug. Alhamdulillah, there are people in the community that are therapists, and what we do at Khalil Center is we do help people with their relationships and with when they are struggling, and so to access all of that, those resources that are there in the community, so people can help. You have the extra time, so now it's time to spend some time repairing relationships if in fact those relationships are being challenged, and especially being challenged because you're now seeing more of each other, and you're not able to find the excuse of work or friends or masjid or whatever else
To run away
from your real life responsibilities and at home.
Jazakallah khair. Sheikh Farhan?
I think I already said my 2 cents.
Oh, did you? It was Sheikh Ahmed.
Alhamdulillah, I mean, just building upon what everyone has said, hadith that comes to mind is the hadith that's found in the Sahih of Imam Bukhari and the Musnad of Imam Ahmed, where the Prophet ﷺ talked about a person if they're living during a time of a plague or an epidemic, and they stay in their land, or in one narration, they stay in their house. And he says, Sabiran muhtasiban, patiently and hoping for a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يعلم أنه لا يصيبه إلا ما كتب الله له, and so patiently hoping for a reward from Allah, and realizing that nothing will afflict them except that which Allah has decreed for them. He says that person will have the reward of a martyr. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, he says, commenting on this hadith, he says that the wording of the hadith, it necessitates that basically anyone that fulfills these descriptions, that they're living at a time of a plague, and they're staying in their land or in their house, and they're patient, and they're hoping for a reward from Allah, and at the same time they have that belief in Allah that nothing will afflict them except that which Allah has already decreed. He says that person, regardless if they die or not, they will have the reward of a martyr, right? So I think the biggest gain that could come out of this is for all of us that Allah preserve us and protect us, and we all live after this epidemic and this plague. But the biggest gain that could come out of this is that we all come out as winners, and we all have the reward of a shaheed. And the biggest loss that could come out of this is that we don't have that reward because we weren't patient. We were just wondering about, when is this going to end? We can't wait till this is going to end. And we weren't thinking about every day, every moment that we're partaking in, social distancing, staying in our home, trying to take all the precautions. If we weren't doing this, hoping for a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that could be the biggest loss, right? The biggest gain is that we all come out as winners, and we all come out having the reward of a shaheed, whether we live or whether we die, right? So just kind of, I think it builds upon really what Sheikh Atif beautifully said. The gain would be understanding trials and tribulations, and the loss would be not understanding trials and tribulations.
Jazakallah khairan. I'll say something and then I'll leave it with our dear Sheikh Nu'man. I think the biggest gain is getting to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more. It is through these unique situations that certain understandings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala come about, that if we were not to have gone through this, we would not have realized. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us who He is through the natural world, through the events that we see. I mean, it was mentioned before that this coronavirus has brought down the world powers, to their knees. These countries with so much resources, so much power, so much intelligence. When you look at them, they're so well built. You think that it's impossible to invade, and you have those YouTube videos, the 10 countries that are impossible to invade, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought them all down to their needs with one thing that's you can't even see, it's not visible. So the biggest thing a person can gain is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being closer to Him, having this be an opportunity of building the concept of tawakkul, patience, all of these spiritual elements that help a person come closer to Allah, get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more. And the biggest loss is not to have gained that, as was mentioned by the various individuals in this group. So it's a great opportunity. And as Sheikh Ahmed was saying, it's rare for something like this to happen. Even throughout human history, it's very rare for a plague of this stature, of this level to happen. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chose this generation despite our many shortcomings. I mean, we're not exactly the best generation in Islamic history, but despite that, he chose this as being one of the generations that has to endure this to get that reward. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept. And Sheikh Nu'man, if you could please conclude, and maybe even with a dua. Jazakallah khair.
No, I think this was very beneficial, and just, the two blessings that we have that we take for granted, and there are diminishing assets in our life, is free time and good health. So I think if we don't know how to spend free time and our good health, that's going to be the greatest loss we have. And making your time and good health count would be the best gain that we can ever have. So I think نعمتان مغبون فيهما كثير من الناس الصحة والفراغ. Two blessings that many of us take for granted is our free time and our good health. So inshallah, if we can make them count, we'll have the biggest, largest gain in our lives, inshallah. But with that said, just concluding with a small dua, the dua of the majlis when we come together. There's been a lot of good that was said. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us all to benefit from it. And anything that we may have erred in and may have taken lightly or joked about, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us for that. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallah wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Jazakumullah khairan.
Jazakumullah khair. Thank you all for your time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept these efforts. I hope that we were of some comfort and benefit to those who participated and those who watch afterwards. Jazakumullah khair. And we'll conclude with that. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.